I'm Sam White from the Stairway to Hell forums, casting an eye over the bead port of a well-known game from Palace Software. I'm going to have a quick look at Barbarian from Superior Software for the BBC Micro. Now this is one of those rare games that I actually managed to pick up in the high street, as the Blue Ribbon re-release somehow managed to find its way into my local WH Smiths, which is an achievement in itself. I think back in 1987 I was one of many people who picked up this game pretty much on the basis of the cover art, which included the introduction of Mr. Michael Van Dijk. Not really sure how you pronounce that, but I think most people know him as Wolf from Gladiators anyway. But let's face it, it wasn't really him that we were looking at. Maria Whittaker looked stunning in a bikini, which caused a little bit of trouble later on with the advertising campaign, with lots of people complaining about the racy adverts. Anyway, let's have a look at the game. Ah, my eyes! That's nothing like the front cover that I remember. Barbarian, is that supposed to be some sort of joke about Pamela Anderson being a Nazi? I don't know. Let's skip that quickly. I'm feeling a bit shortchanged already. Anyway, hopefully that was a glitch. Yes, let's change the keys and make them a little bit more friendly for a one player. Okay. Now there's two modes for Barbarian, the Ultimate Warrior. We've got a combat practice mode, which allows you to practice against 10 guys and then get told, yeah, move on to the Fights to the Death version. We have the actual Fights to the Death version. In practice, the real difference is the fact that there's two distinct sets of backgrounds for the two modes. So let's start with a bit of combat practice. A Dylan conversion. I discovered later that was actually done by our very own Mr. Peter Scott, but he was under license with another publisher at the time, hence the pseudonym. Let's start by having a look at the demo. We can see here that Barbarian is your typical one-on-one beat 'em up and owes a lot to Way of the Exploding Fist, and is really the best the 8-bit generation got towards getting our own Street Fighter 2. You can see the characters are identical, one's with a shirt, one's without a shirt. There are two sets of moves. There's offensive moves and defensive moves. You get offensive moves if you hold down the fire button. If you don't hold down the fire button, you can move around and use the defensive moves. Although there isn't really much point, as when you defend against something, there's no advantage to it, so you might as well be defending with an offensive move. Anyway, we can see there that the no-shirted opponent got battered quite quickly. Here's the second arena. The first one was a forest arena. This one's out at night with some mountains in the background. You can see in the top left and the top right corner the 12 hit points. Each half circle is worth a hit point, and your objective is to knock down those 12 half hit points of your opponent. There are two particularly notable moves. There's the Web of Death, which you can hear there with a very distinctive sound, which I believe is taken from the Conan the Barbarian movie, and involves the sword actually travelling up behind the back of the Barbarian. There's clearly a lot of references to both Conan, the original novels by Robert E. Howard, as well as Conan the Barbarian starring Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger. The other distinctive move, which we haven't seen yet, is the Flying Neck Chop, which is an instantly winning move which will decapitate the opponent and have their head bouncing up and down the floor. So let's have a go and see whether or not I can achieve that against one of the early opponents. Just wait for the demo to finish. Okay, and there we go. Let's give it a go. So I'm the guy with a shirt on. Aha! I got a low chop in there. Avoided the kick. I'll go for the Flying Neck Chop. Ooh, but he blocked with a defensive move. But you can see there they got no advantage for doing that, so there really is very little point in doing it. Okay. You can knock people over, but it doesn't actually cost them any health, so there's no point in doing that. The loose plot behind this, by the way, is regarding a wizard, Drax, who's stolen the Princess Mariana, and the only way of saving her is if a strong man from the wastelands to the north is able to rescue and beat 10 champions. Okay, we can see the bouncing head here, and the amusing little orc's going to come on and kick the head off the screen. Excellent stuff. Okay, so that's pretty much, you've seen all of the combat to the practice mode here. There's 10 warriors to get through. If you manage to get all the way through 10 warriors, which pretty much impossible without the use of an emulator, you'll just get a little message that says, yeah, go and try the Fights to the Death version. So let's go and give that a go now. Okay, so we'll fire it up, skip past the hideous loading screen as quickly as possible. Yes, we'll change those keys again to make it slightly easier on a one player. Okay, and this time let's go for the Fights to the Death version. So you can see here that it's pretty much identical to the first combat practice version. The only difference is that you're fighting against you're fighting with a different background, and we can see the wizard Drax in the background. There's not really much to say at this point. The AI of the computer is good in that it doesn't appear to be using the same moves every time, but you'll find that after the first 3 or 4, you're really just looking to get in the flying neck chop, because if you don't get it, there's absolutely no way of beating them. And certainly the chances of actually completing the game are pretty slim. I'm not sure that anyone's actually managed it without the use of emulators. Other than that, the only thing to say really is the differences between this and the game and other platforms. It's a little bit disappointing that we were a bit short-changed compared to, say, the Commodore 64 version. There's no real proper ending. In other platforms you got to fight against the wizard Drax. That doesn't happen here. There's also no music, as you can hear. The sound effects are adequate, but you are missing the rather funky SID chip music available on the Commodore 64 version. And then the only other thing that I think is probably missing is the little snakes that adorn the side of the screens on the left and right. They do tend to bite very often with no real reason on some of the other platforms, but we don't get to see that. But other than that, overall, I actually think Barbarian has stood the test of time pretty well. It's a pretty enjoyable game. Even now I quite enjoy going back and having a bit of a whack. There's no real chance or danger of you actually finishing the game, and even if you did, there's not really a huge amount as far as the end loading screen goes. But no, other than that, it's a pretty cracking game, and I suggest anyone should check it out. Right, I'm going to go back and see if I can give Drax a bit of a run for his money. See ya!